Hi, it's Ra, and thank you for clicking back on my channel. Today we're talking about resentments, step 4, which is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. What does that sound like? Exactly what that is. I like to call it cleaning out the closet. It's like spring cleaning, but for whatever your duration of using and drinking, and doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, we hold resentments, and these resentments can take us back out to not wanting to really clean that up within ourselves. And what happens is that we can go back out and relapse or use or drink or hold in bitterness, anger, guilt, shame, and all those lower vibrational dense energies which can come in between you, your purpose, and a really beautiful life. So resentments, like I said, it's that closet, because the step 5 that comes after that, I like to call it the backpack. So what are these resentments, and how do they look like, and how did they look like for me? Well, in the program, it teaches about step 4. There's columns that you make out. I'm only going to talk about the first column. And that is making a list from the time that you remember of people, places, and things that you hold resentment towards. I had 50 on my list, and whether it was my school back where I grew up, and I come from another country, and during the time I had moved out here, there was a lot of prejudiceness that went on. So United States was another thing that was on my resentments. Some actors were on my resentments. Walt Disney was on my resentments list. There were ex-boyfriends, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, friends, my schools. So I had resentments that I didn't know I had resentments. It was the sponsor that I had. Well, she was explaining to me why I was to write these things down. And I was like, but forgive and forget. I've let them go. But the thing is, the mind holds memory, and those memories get triggered along the path of life, the journey. So it was no harm done. Okay, I'd rather not really keep going back and digging shit up, but okay, for the sake of doing this step, let me write down my resentments. And I did, and like I said, I had 50 on the list, and then we go through it to see which ones are actual resentments. So I'm just going to kind of talk about, so after listing people, places, and things from childhood up until now, then I look at the list, and then I look at the resentments I have on that list. And, this takes a lot of courage to go within. It takes humility to really go within, to look at how self behaved. And it's just how I behaved on what was presented to me. Resentments are, I've been hurt, and I feel, right? I feel angry. I feel mad, and I'm going to hang on to this resentment. But the thing about hanging on to the resentment, whether that person or that place or that situation is still in your life or not, they may have worked through it. They may have let go of it, but you still haven't. And if you still haven't let go and healed that resentment, then you are continuously drinking that poison. They say it's like, drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies. But, not that I want anybody to die, but, fades away, or that it heals. But that cannot happen without my shift in perspective, without me saying, how was I behaving during the time of what I knew? Like today, this morning, I was in yoga. And as I was doing yoga this morning, body holds memory and some hip movements. And I realized, oh my God, the biggest resentment I've had is on myself. Because I look at, wow, I could have been doing this a while ago. But then I go, well, why didn't I? And then I look at, well, I wasn't good enough. I didn't think of myself as being worthy enough, or having something to say, or having something to share. So where did that come from? And when I go back to my list of I could use my mother as an example. So, and I'll get into these examples later, but I kind of just wanted to write down some bullet points about how resentments can really take, especially an alcoholic, right? This is about alcoholism, right? So if I'm going to hang on to these resentments and not heal them and just put them under the rug, they're still there, right? And somebody else is going to come along that's going to trigger you, and they're going to get the wrath of you. And where they were just somebody who just came in and who's now triggered you. So self-reflection can be a purging. So I like to call it, I want to look at my life and I want to purge, right? So what is this purge? Is really looking at how I behaved with where I was at, what purpose it served. So it's about shifting my perspective. So coming this far, if you've already gone through step 1, which is admitting that, your life is in shambles and there's a problem and you want to kind of take a step towards helping that problem. It's admitting to yourself that, yeah, I have a problem. And I don't know how to do this by myself. I've tried. And I just need help. Step 2 comes in to say, okay, there's a power greater than yourself, whether that's a group of drunks, whether that's God, whether that's universe, whether that is your therapist, whoever that is for you is what it is for you. There is no wrong way to do any of this. The only way that would be a wrong way is not to tend to yourself, because that is ignoring yourself, your needs, your soul, and your growth here on this planet. And suffering is choice, and I choose today not to suffer and to continuously work on myself so I can come out and help other people who are in that in-between stage, because I get it. I get what it's like to have resentments. I get what it's like to be angry for a really, really, really long time and to blame other people for my misery or for what didn't work out for me, or which I'll go through, the things like envy, jealousy, isolation, sadness, abandonment, rejection, all those things that come up that are false, but yet because of my resentments with these certain events in my life, that became my belief, and hence it's kind of just took over me, all over my body, my essence, and my being. So I want to work through that, right? So I just took a few notes because I don't want it to go too far. So after you're making your inventory, your patterns, becoming aware, ready to purge, change the way one had viewed events now to a higher perspective, right? And that is just where we want to come to, is this, where is this at? So step 4, truth can be unsettling, right? But it also can be so liberating, because I get to see, there's forgiveness. I get to see where I haven't been compassionate and empathetic and forgiving. And forgiveness is what is needed for that resentment, right? I forgive how I behaved. I forgive for neglecting myself. I forgive for not knowing any better. I forgive for not making my public self known more, because the way I did it before was so damaging, and I forgive myself for these things. But why did those things happen? And again, I'm going to make videos just based on my own story, because that's the only person I can talk about is my experiences. That way I can kind of go through them. So the first column is list your resentments, people, places, and things. Like I said, even I'm going to use Walt Disney, for example. Fuck, what a resentment. They make these movies that are all about, the prince and the princess and happily ever after. And let me tell you, at 52, not my story. Definitely not my story. And no prince, and I did not have a happily ever after marriage, and nor did I have that happily ever after. I am single. And I choose to be, because today I'm looking at that happily ever after has to happen between myself and myself. And then I'll become a vibrational match with somebody else who's feeling whole within themselves. But Walt Disney had it put out, that is the story. The prince comes and he rescues you, and I chased that. I chased rescuing others, and I wanted to be rescued and saved, and that didn't happen, and that was really damaging for a very long time. You know, I loved you know, Aladdin and Sleeping Beauty and things of that nature. It's not that I don't now, I just now see it as a great little story. And it doesn't mean that it's not your story. It just wasn't my story. And it doesn't mean that it won't be my story later. But I had to go through a lot of things to get rid of the bitterness, the feeling of anxiety, of pain, of suffering, of envy, and all those things that were holding me in bondage to myself. And I had to see why I behaved the way I did in the day that I was in the year that I was in. So, you know what? Alcoholism doesn't care how old you are, how young you are, how thin you are, how big you are, what color is your skin. It doesn't care. It's in the mind, and the mind has been programmed. And if we don't tend to the mind, to master the mind and have it work with us, then we're always going to be a puppet and to this 3D world. And, you know, you're just going to keep numbing yourself through life. And if it's still working for you, I don't think you'd be watching this video. Let's pull a card. And, you know, yeah, resentments. And let me tell you, I still get them, but now I'm like, like, Rah, where's this fucking coming from? And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I'm doing fine. And I want to give you the definition for fine, and I'm sure you've heard it, which is fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And sometimes I'm fine. And sometimes, you know, I just have to take a rest and kind of look at, why am I still holding a resentment on something? Where am I behaving in a manner that is an old behavior that's coming up that still needs for me to look at? And some people say, oh, don't look at it, don't bring the past up, you know, write a new story and all that. Yes, I am here to write a new story, and I have written a new story, and I'll get to that later on in the later videos after we've done the work, right? And then, yes, you do get to give it a new story on why things happened the way they have happened. But first, I want to get rid of the anxiety and the pain and the resentments, because I'm shedding, I'm purging, I'm crying, I'm yelling, I'm screaming, and then I'm seeing things from a higher perspective. And when I get to see things from a new pair of eyes, now I can start writing a new story. But I have to get rid of the old, right? Or at least for me, that's the way I saw it. Might be different for you. You know, like I said, whether it's through a therapist or, I go to 2 meetings a week. Sometimes I just go to 1. Today, 7 years sober, recovered from drinking. I don't crave alcohol. I don't crave drugs. But you know what? Do I tend to sometimes go to that place of fear? Yes, and I'll have to ask myself, is this false evidence appearing real, or future events already ruined, fuck everything and run? Or do I want to face everything and recover? And it comes to that. We're here on a short time on this planet, and I want to get rid of my resentments, because what comes along after resentments, it's freedom, it's liberation. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, it's self-worth. It is all about self-worth, right? And the orange is, the color orange is the sacral, which is the feminine energy. And this is where we create. It's all about, what is it that I'm creating? And this is also where I hold guilt and shame, right? On when the chakra is closed. So self-worth, too, exactly what I was talking about was, what did I think of myself? The things that I was doing with myself while I was drinking and using. There's some shit that I've done that, oh my God, I look at today, and all I can have today is have empathy, compassion, and love for my journey and what I've done with my body, what I've done with my mind, how spiritually disconnected I was, and all because I didn't see that I deserved so much more. I didn't see myself as worthy because of some of the choices that I had made throughout my life. I had felt so much shame and so much guilt that I thought having an alcoholic death would be the best thing that could happen to me. And boy, was I wrong. Awakening and realizing my worth and my value, and not from a space of ego, but from a place of connection to my higher self, to my soul, to my journey here on this planet, and how all of that, everything that I've experienced, has been for reasons that I did not understand before, where today I so get it. And, you know, they say you don't wish to shut the door on the past. But here's the thing. Now I look at it. I integrate light from the dark. And so powerful, because when one is in acceptance of the two, your healing has begun. Namaste, which means the God, the source within me, sees the light, the God, the source within all of you. And if you haven't subscribed, I would really love for you guys to subscribe and push that like button. If you have any comments, please leave them. And I sure would like to interact with all of you. Take care.